Welcome to Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of the Fundraising Day Conference 2012 in New York City. We're in Midtown Manhattan at the Marriott Marquis Hotel, and the subject we're talking about right now is working with your board. My guests are Terri Billie, Assistant Director of Advancement at the Hudson River Museum, Wendy Nadel, Executive Director at Yonkers Partners in Education, and Lisa Robb, Executive Director of the New York Council on the Arts. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have all three of you, and thank you for taking time on a busy conference day right before lunch. And I know we're going to get you to lunch. Don't worry, you won't be late for lunch.
That's good.
Your subject is working with boards of small organizations. Lisa, why are boards of small organizations different than boards of larger organizations?
Well, normally boards at large organizations do a fair amount of fundraising. It's a given and planning and very kind of instrumental involvement with the board, but less so on a volunteer basis or operational basis. Smaller organizations tend to have closer relationships to boards in terms of really what they're doing for you. And it's also more difficult for them than at large organizations to get some of those things done. So you sometimes encounter at a good board in a small organization tremendous work ethics and tremendous alignment with the mission because it is more of a struggle to get to some of the resources that the larger organization boards sort of inherently have.
Okay. Wendy, why don't you just set some context, explain what Yonkers Partners in Education is about, what's your work?
We are a public education fund that supports the Yonkers Public School District. We're an independent organization that works to increase the number of students in Yonkers who graduate from high school and complete a post-secondary program.
Okay, and Terri, what's the specific mission of the Hudson River Museum?
The Hudson River Museum is a history, science, and art museum providing opportunities to broaden the artistic and cultural experiences for people in the Hudson River region.
Okay, and Lisa, why don't you explain what your work is with Council on the Arts?
The New York State Council on the Arts is an agency of New York State government, and we work for the governor and receive our money through the budget process from the budget enacted every year by the governor and legislature. And we distribute $35 million of public funds to about 1,500 organizations, of which 80% have budgets of under $700,000.
Okay.
Small organizations.
Okay. Terri, let's dispel a myth that you helped me with just a few minutes ago. Boards of small organizations are not necessarily small boards.
No, they can range anywhere from 35 to 17 or 15, usually not less than that.
And do we find the same type of diversity on a small organization board that we'll find in a larger organization board?
Yes and no. Sometimes you may have a larger organization may have more corporate people that have connections to larger mainstream corporations. Then you may have some people that have more connections to private foundations. Community boards tend to have a lot more community leaders, people who are connected politically, people who have businesses in the area, and then of course you do have people that live in the area that may work for a corporation in another capacity, and you also may have some folks that are government based.
Okay, so you'll have that local commitment as Lisa was describing.
Right, you have a little bit more local commitment. Your group may live in the area where your organization is. Where a larger organization, your trustees may live elsewhere.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we stay with that, Terri? How can we leverage that local nature of the board?
Well, you're trying to, first off, people become members of your board because they're interested in what you do and want to help it serve your community, the community that they live in. So the urge to be part of something bigger than they are is one of the things that you want to work on. And so then you just need to work and find out what their capacities are, who their contacts are, and see where their strengths are to have them help you.
Yeah, okay. Wendy, let's start with sort of the chronology of a board member's life cycle. recruitment. What are the challenges and that a small organization faces in recruiting successful board members?
Well, I can really just talk from how we do it in my organization, but we typically try to identify specific areas of need that we have on our board and some of the gaps of skill sets, connections, how people are connected, and we try to identify people who can fill those gaps on the board.
Sure.
And typically the way we recruit them is through personal relationships. Typically somebody on our board might know of somebody, or I might have met somebody, or in some cases people have even approached us with an interest in the work that we do.
And now, since you are a local organization, you're drawing from a smaller pool of potential talent.
That's correct.
But you have the advantage of it being local and, the commitment that Lisa talked about.
That's correct.
Okay. Lisa, special challenges, are there special challenges around recruitment of boards for small charities that we should talk about?
Well, I think one of the things we talked about in our workshop earlier was and Wendy spoke to it well, is sort of aligning at a small local level, you want to make sure you know really what you want their role to be. Because there really is a commitment level, an interest level that is often not there in the larger organizations. Mm-hmm. People may actually want to do tacit work for you. They may want to make real connections in real time for you. It's really not they're not doing it for sort of social reasons. So I think aligning that, the individual and what they want to contribute, and then what the organization needs is even more interesting with smaller organizations, because there's more opportunity, I think, to really work with the boards one-on-one with real goals that they want to, complete with you. And because you're a small organization, you can actually do that. The goal isn't a, $25 million capital campaign. It's a $250,000 scholarship campaign, or numbers that become more achievable. So I think that is a challenge.
I've had a guest on not too long ago, Melanie Schnoll-Begun. Her work is with very ultra-high net worth clients in the bank. I apologize. It's either J.P. Morgan or Morgan Stanley. Apologies, Melanie. But her one of the points that she made was that very wealthy people shouldn't be ignored by small organizations as potential board members, because they can be bigger players in a smaller board. Well, of course, plus you want their expertise, but they can be very interested in a small charity. Go ahead, Wendy.
We actually have a few board members who have been on major boards, like in New York City, who I think have a more gratifying experience kind of working on the more local level, rolling up their sleeves, having a direct impact on a cause, rather than sitting on a fancy board and going to 3 or 4 meetings a year and
not feeling
being expected to write a check and doing nothing.
Right.
So I think that's really the distinction.
Yeah.
Right. And same thing here. My organization has a wide variety of folks in both wealthy and not so wealthy, but people who are really involved, and the smaller organization, that's the reason why they become a member of the board, is to get involved because they have a passion.
So, Terri, since fundraising is so important for board members, how do we set the appropriate level of giving for boards at small organizations? What's your advice there?
Some places just give one level of giving for everyone, saying, okay, everyone needs to give $5,000 or $3,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is, but it has to relate to the size of the board's budget. So, for example, my organization does not have a specific give or get, but we expect everyone to participate in the annual fund, everyone to give to the gala in some way, shape, or form, and everyone to give an additional gift of some sort. So you may have some folks that can give $25,000 to the gala, and then $10,000 to the annual fund, and then an additional gift from their private foundation, and then then other people will, through their company or through their and a combination of company and the personal money, give $5,000 to the gala, $1,000 to the annual fund, and some other money.
So there has to be a willingness to accept.
So it's a willingness to accept what they can do, right? Because it's their capacity. So it's about having a conversation with the board member when they're coming on to have them understand that there is a responsibility to support the organization, and then to talk about what level that they're comfortable in giving at.
So is that how you assess their capacity? And you're basically
you need to have a conversation
what they're comfortable with.
Right. Well, you've done the research.
On an annual basis?
Yeah, you've done the research before you've brought them in as a trustee to kind of know what their capacity is. You've done the prospect research to say, okay, well, this person, has given here or there and what have you. So you kind of have an idea of what their financial level is. So then it's a matter of having a careful conversation with them to say, what is it that you feel comfortable with.
And it is, of course, it's important to set those expectations at the recruitment stage.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, they're normally written down. It's not uncommon to have written documents that say your contribution will be $250. That's not an uncommon.
Yeah. Okay.
Or you'll be expected to go to an event, or you'll be expected to cultivate, whatever. It's not uncommon to have those things even written down. It's not like these are secret or uncomfortable conversations. That's just part of the business relationship. Most board people understand there'll be a set of contributions they have to make, some of which include financial, time, whatever.
Would you go so far as to recommend that be a document that the board member signs?
Yes, in most cases there is a board agreement.
Okay.
Because liability, normal.
Okay, Wendy at Partners in Education.
We don't have a written agreement, but we have an explicit verbal commitment that in most cases has been honored without a problem.
Okay.
It's not in a contract.
All right. How about communications with a small organization board? Is it any? I'm guessing easier because most of the people are local. Terry, go ahead.
Well, my CEO communicates with the board on a regular basis. Individually, we have meetings every month. So every other month is an executive board meeting.
Okay.
And every other month on the other side is our full board meeting. And then we do not have a board meeting in August. So there's that. Then there's also committees. So we have committees. There's a finance committee, a development committee, a program committee, and a nominating committee. And so they usually meet every other month or every 3 months or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I communicate with the staff, with the board members that I'm working with for a specific project, or different staff would work directly with the board members. So it's more informal, whereas, again, a larger organization with larger, more high-level board members, you may not have as much communication
access
to them and communication through all your staff with them. It may just be point to point from your CEO to the board, or maybe your CEO, your CFO, and your development person, the only people that talk to your board.
Yeah, Wendy, were you going to say something on communicating?
For us, I really have kind of individual relationships with the board members, and for the most part, I'd say 75% of them I'm in communication with on a very regular basis.
Okay. And you're the executive director?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Which is, I guess, they're more accessible to the charity also. The board members make themselves more accessible than a larger organization might find?
Well, I think,
you have to go through assistance
with email, and I think communication is really easy, wherever you live. You can just shoot an email and get a response, but because the board's pretty active, everybody's working on something. So there's always, the communication is not for the purpose so much of updating as it is to kind of do the work. And we work together as, collaboratively on, specific issues and projects that puts me into direct communication with the board members on a fairly regular basis.
Okay. Lisa, what about, switching topics a little bit, assessing the capacity of your board in different different areas. Maybe it's fundraising, maybe it's assessing whether you have gaps in expertise.
Yeah,
what's important there?
I think, Wendy, we've all talked about nominating committees, and what we do, we're in all the organizations I've worked for, is the nominating committee is one of the most important committees on any board, are the nominating people. And we do it very almost like database oriented. Here are the 5 or 6 strands of talent that we need, social talent, business talent, political talent, what marketing, whatever it is. Here's the slots where that is filled now. Here's where we're going to have gaps. We spend a lot of time looking at the term limits and when people are coming up for renewal because gaps will then, because you really want to cultivate, minimally a year in advance. You want to start your cultivation efforts because you make no assumptions, and also things come up for people. They were interested last year, but this year someone is ill in their family, they've gotten a promotion, they're moving, etc. So the nominating committee is very important, and to be very strategic about the goals. I mean, you could have a goal that you have celebrities, that's fine, but you have to just make sure it's all, you've got what's it called, a pipeline. So you're constantly putting names into that pipeline.
And your board is very active in that process.
Well, they are on the nominating committee rarely includes people from staff in anything other than like that's really very much the work of a board.
But they're also engaging the full board.
Oh, correct.
As they identify needs.
Oh, right? Yeah, no, that it's talked about. Usually nominating and issues of board recruitment are usually part of certain board meetings. It'll come up as an agenda item, and then there's the nominating committee, which has, like you were saying, most of the time I talked to our board members when I was at Pelham Arts Center because they were a working board like Wendy, so a lot of the communication had to do with task-oriented project management, things you were doing together.
Okay. Wendy, Terri, anything you want to add about assessing the capacity of the board? No. Okay. What about board training? Any differences in when a new board member comes on? Any differences that you've identified?
Do you have a manual?
For smaller organizations? Okay, please, go ahead.
We have a board manual that we've been evolving. Our organization's not quite 5 years old yet, so we've been evolving that, and new board members that come on get an orientation. They are given a manual, and each year we have a 2-3 hour orientation for our new members, and that's how we train them. I mean, there's no big formal training program, but it's more of an orientation to the organization.
Okay.
And most of them have been to something that most of them know us before they join the board.
Yeah.
Someone in the other workshop had an interesting idea. She spoke about on their board, they actually had like a, in high school or college, the Key Club where you came in new and someone was aligned to you. They had a senior board member, each new board member that came on, there was a relationship. They were the mentor to that new board member. I thought that was a really good idea.
Yeah, I thought that was a great idea. What we do is we have a retreat every year, once a year. It's a Saturday afternoon, and so we are doing both role-playing or discussions, talking about topics that are of interest, reviewing our strategic plan. So last year at our board retreat, we went through some role-playing in how to make an ask.
Okay, excellent. That kind of leads me to something interesting, I hope. What about board members who aren't comfortable asking directly, but maybe can be engaged in other activities around fundraising? Why don't you continue, Terri?
Well, some people are they feel uncomfortable asking their friends, their family, or going to even business colleagues to set up a meeting for something. And so you need to find different ways for them to support, whether they can host a party of their friends at their home. We've done that, where then you have your museum staff and their friends there, so the museum staff can do the cultivation because that's what we do. Or you can have them come with you on a site visit with a funder or a lunch, and they just need to be the intro person. And the ask and the program description and all of that comes from the staff people. So they are observing, they're participating in some way, but they're shadowing, they're learning by going through this, site visit or, observing the ask at a cocktail party or what have you.
Do you find that they become more, the ones who are reluctant in the beginning to actually ask, become more comfortable? Have you seen that?
Well, a little bit, yeah. I mean, that's the goal.
Okay.
And sometimes it may take a little longer. It depends on everyone's personality is different, and some people are more comfortable in the limelight and others are not.
Okay.
So you have to kind of work with what they're willing to do and what their comfort level is. And you can't force someone into something they don't want to do.
No, that'll be a disaster.
Forget it.
Wendy, did you want to add to that?
I think something Terry said is really key, and that is, in addition to asking people for money, equally as important is just opening up doors, making introductions. And that's, even for people that don't like to ask for money, making introductions is really important because, particularly if you really believe in the mission of the organization can sell itself.
Right. Well, feeds that pipeline that Lisa mentioned.
Yeah.
Constantly introducing new people.
Right.
We have a board member, and, one of the things I like to do is just kind of focus what I have my board members do. And we have one board member who has some really key foundation contacts. And what I ask him to do every year is, you get me into 2 foundations, and that's it. That's your job, and that's huge. That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Lisa, anything you want to add?
Well, I do think that friendraising and fundraising are all part of that same resource development. And as long as you can make sure there's enough prongs in what you think of resource development, there's no board member that can't help you.
All right. We have to leave it there, ladies. Thank you very much. Lisa, Wendy,
Thank
Terri.
you.
Thank you.
Lisa Robb is Executive Director of the New York Council on the Arts. Wendy Nadel is Executive Director of Yonkers Partners in Education, and Terri Billie is Assistant Director for Advancement at the Hudson River Museum. Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Tony Martignetti, Nonprofit Radio coverage of Fundraising Day 2012 at the Marriott Marquis in Midtown Manhattan.